All right. Hey guys, I just wanted to welcome you to learning about emotional intelligence. My name's Erin Putney. I am a nurse educator in the practical nursing program. A lot of this information is going to come from an instructional sort of aspect, but I know there's a lot of people that are staff and not faculty members, and there's still very much applicable information in it for you. We're going to start with self-awareness, and this is kind of one of the core fundamental pillars of emotional intelligence. And it sounds really simple to be self-aware, to get to know yourself, but there are some complex pieces about you, and so you need to be able to be open to them and dig into some of that information. I think what's really important for us to remember is that we feel before we think. We have two parts of our brains, and one part is kind of that core feeling part. I usually call it the chicken brain. I know we're not related to chickens, it's okay. But I call it kind of that chicken brain, and it's that core piece that has kept us alive, that does a lot of survival. And so, you've got your flight, fight, or freeze that's kind of in there. And so that's a really reactionary space. So we react with feelings. But when we give ourselves time, when we take that breath to relax, we respond with thinking. And so that's where a lot of this self-awareness comes from, is what are some of our emotional responses? It's really important that we don't get stuck in what I call the feeling fog. If you get stuck in the feeling fog, you're not going to make good choices. You are going to make very fast reactionary choices, and that's going to be maybe when you snap at your kids when you come home from work and you're tired and the house is a mess, and you're going to have that instant reaction instead of like, oh, they've been working, they've been at school all day too, no one was home, the house is a mess, it's okay. Not going to say I'm definitely not perfect. I have my moments with my kids as well, so just be thinking about that as we're going through it. Let's start with some easy stuff. This is kind of the first part to start, is that we have to stop labeling emotions good or bad, okay? They are feel good and uncomfortable emotions, joy, happiness, those all feel good. We like the feeling of those. No one really likes the feeling of arguing or anger or fighting, unless you're my teenage son. He seems to like those spots. But most of us don't like those spots. We don't feel comfortable in that anxiety space. But it's not necessarily that it was bad. We evolved anxiety to heighten our awareness, to be aware of our surroundings, to pump blood faster through so we could run away from, bears and dinosaurs and whatever. That anxiety is okay. It doesn't feel good, but it's okay. Now, crippling anxiety that takes us away from where we are and takes us away from those important spaces, that's not beneficial. So we have to find the balance. But some anxiety, like before a test, is okay. Anxiety before a big project or a presentation is okay. It just means that we're a little extra heightened, and it means we want to do a good job. All right. So those are kind of the things that are there. It's just that labeling. It's so much easier for our brain to label something good, bad, black, white, light, dark, whatever it be. It's really easy to label it. So I challenge you, next time you're feeling some discomfort, don't label it. Give it some time to settle and be like, what's going on? And it's okay to own that discomfort a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little activity. And this is going to be get to know your feelings. So we each have different backgrounds, different histories, different stories, different socioeconomics, different religions and faiths. Emotional intelligence is beautiful in the fact that it works for any and all of those. We just have to be willing to kind of self-discover. And when we're going to work with getting to know your feelings, I'm going to show you some pictures here. And they're going to be pictures that are going to invoke feelings. Whether they're, we're not labeling them good or bad, we're going to do kind of a feeling dump. And so I'm going to show you a picture. And if you need to pause on that picture so you can really get a good visual of it, or if you need to pause to give you a little bit more time to kind of emotional dump on a piece of paper, that's just fine. If I had some beautiful music, we would play that too. So, but we're going to do a quick feeling dump. And I just want you to think about There's no judgment. No one's perceiving this. No one's going to read it. So it's just between you, yourself, and I, and you're going to be going through. So you can kind of start with just this first image. We have two babies kind of cuddled up. Are you a person that's like, oh, that's super sweet, they make me feel cuddly and want to go hug my kids? Or are you a person that's like, whoa, I'm glad I never had babies? So kind of just as a practice, think about how you're feeling with these two babies. From this point on, I'm not really going to interpret any of it. It's really important for you to do this activity on your own. So as you look at this image, how do you feel? This is a mom coming home from a deployment. How do you feel? This next image is of the fires that have devastated the natural habitat in Australia. And so you have an image here. How does that image make you feel? This is an image from Minnesota. This is a celebratory, they were celebrating gay rights to get married. How does this make you feel? Here is at a cemetery, a memorial. Soldiers dying while in service. How does that make you feel? This is an image from Oklahoma. This is a gentleman who found his dog alive after a tornado had ripped through his home. How does it make you feel? Here's two women or young ladies with their head wraps. How does this image make you feel? What does it make you think about? It's really important as we go through self-awareness that we are truthful with ourselves. It's really hard. Like, there may have been images on there that socially you know you should feel one way, but your faith may contradict it, or your history may add to it. And so it's really important that you go through and you actually look at images and you start watching things and realizing where your emotions are and how they're connecting to images and the events that happen around you. It's really easy to do this exercise. There are tons of images on the news. There are tons of images out there that are going to make you feel one way or another, whether it's that they make your blood boil and make you angry, or whether it's like they make you cry because they're so joyous and happy. Recognize and get comfortable with those feelings. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but being willing to be in that space allows you to understand how you react and respond to people and how you can kind of control some of those emotions. After writing them down, look at the words you've used. Look at patterns. Did you use the same words over and over? Were you truthful with yourself? Again, this is your own reflection, so it's not going to be something that any of us are going to see or judge. Were there images that hit you harder? Were there images that conjured up other thoughts? It's really important that we pay attention to those other thoughts that we're having, because every time we go into a situation, whether we mean to or not, we take our emotional baggage with us. And whether that emotional baggage is full of rocks and boulders, or it's full of feathers and paper clips, whatever it be, it depends how we go through and how we can lift up the person and ourselves and how we respond to it. Other things, what things triggered discomfort for you? That's kind of interesting, because you would think, oh, I should dig into that discomfort. Well, to some degree, yeah, you want to dig into that discomfort and start thinking about why. Why did that cause discomfort? What can I do about that? How can I work with that in the future? Were there images that made you smile? And then thinking about, did any of those images have the response they did because of your values? It's really important that we visit our values. Our values are very different. It's part of what makes humanity just beautiful, is that we have all of these things that intertwine us together, but then there's so many of these beautiful pieces that make us unique. Journaling is a really good way to work through emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Journaling after you've had a hard day at work, journaling while you're at your kids' hockey practice, or your 2 minutes before dinner. Journaling doesn't have to be something that you have a set time and you say, "Dear Journal," or "Dear Abby," or whatever. You can just write down thoughts. You can have journals that are lists of emotions that you've had throughout the day. Lists of thoughts or feelings, that an event triggered. It will help you kind of capture those pieces and make you really understand what's going on with it. Journaling, I really like this analogy that, you can do a diet, but if you don't actually, if you go to the fridge because you're hungry and you open the fridge and you look at food and you're like, okay, I'm not hungry anymore because I looked at food. That's sort of what thinking is like, right? When we think about our emotions. But journaling is what allows us to ingest it. It's what allows us to actually eat. So it's not the looking at food that makes us feel full. It's the actual eating of food. And so it's really important that we actually take time to not just think about our feelings and our emotions, but to actually do an action with them so that we can be really ingesting it and being a part of it and being an activity. So think about that as you're going through all of these exercises of how can I journal? How can I actually ingest and take all this stuff in and make it my own? Another thing that comes up with emotional intelligence and especially self-awareness is get to know your triggers, all right? So if going home and finding a messy house is one of your triggers, that's going to make you snap at your kids, maybe take that 10 extra seconds outside the house to take a deep breath and realize you have kids or dogs or pets or whatever, and it's going to be a messy house. All right? So getting to know your triggers. What are they? I know mine is a messy sink. If I get in my house and my sink is full of dishes, I go a little ballistic sometimes. So I get to know what your triggers are. And put them on a scale of where are they on that spectrum, right? Are they kind of in that, that's just irritating, but I can deal with it? Are they in the, ugh, I have to really deal with this now? Or are they in the fuming, little anger guy, gonna lose your top? I swear, my background is a trauma nurse. I can be in craziness and high stress situations at work and keep my cool the whole time. And then I will go out to the nurse's station and break my pencil, and that will just be the last straw, right? Literally, that broke, and I lose it. So getting to know what your triggers are is really important. I put up some different activities because I do know that we have people that are faculty and staff, and so I wanted to put up some stuff. So I put up, you've got showing up late. How much of a trigger is that for you? Where on the spectrum of agitation is that one? Are you a person that you're habitually 5 minutes late and you know that, and so you know that potentially is going to irritate someone else, or running behind is just part of who you are, or is it that people showing up late for you is hugely irritating, and to you it says that they devalue your time? Where is that on your trigger spectrum? Pen clicking. Oh my gosh, is that irritating or what? When someone's sitting there and you're trying to have a conversation with them and they're just clicking their pen. Where is that on your spectrum? Does it change? Does it go from, oh, it's a little irritating to, okay, I'm gonna break their pen if they don't stop here soon? Where is that on your trigger spectrum? A know-it-all. These ones are always interesting, right? Especially in class, or maybe even at the counter when someone's coming up and talking to you about their financial aid. The know-it-all. Well, I know this. I know it's this way, or whatever. And maybe they have a misunderstanding of something, and you have to kind of de-escalate that a situation. Is the know-it-all your trigger? Is people on their phone your trigger? I know for my mom, this is a huge one. If you are on your phone when you are spending time with her, she is just done with you. And so like when she used to work as a customer service representative, she hated it when people came up to be on their phone. I know as an educator, dude, if you're looking down on your lap is not that interesting. I'm pretty sure I know you're on your phone and you're not paying attention. How much of a trigger is that for me? That one doesn't bother me as much. It doesn't as long as you're not bothering people around. That one for me is kind of on the whatever. If you don't want this information, that's up to you. But one that is huge on my trigger spectrum is side conversations. That one will get me into this space really quickly. And I can't say that it's my favorite part of who I am, but it's something that I know about my triggers. So then maybe as a way to work with it, I'll be like, okay, maybe I need to do some group work so I get them separated from their friends. Or maybe I randomize who they're going to sit by. Something like that to help get rid of side conversations, or to just be like, maybe I have to call them out and be like, hey guys, you're disrupting the class. Can you please stop? Maybe being that direct. However it is, I need to keep myself from getting to this spot, because this spot isn't a good one to be in. That one is where I am reacting out of emotion instead of responding and the thinking from that thinking space. So think about what some of your irritations are. During your journaling or at some point, kind of jot down what are your irritations. If you've had a rough day, jot down what your irritations are. And then you can look at like, what is it that you can do to help mitigate those? Because remember, the only person you're in control of is you. And so it's really hard to make sure that you can't change other people. Sorry, we wish we could, we can't. So we can control ourselves, and we can control how we respond to them. This is a good one of stop and ask yourself, what and why? I really like this idea of stop and ask yourself. When you have a reaction, when you have a response to something that you're like, whoa, that was a little over the top, give yourself permission to not be perfect, but also permission to have time to think about, like, why did I do that? Now, the big thing that I always have is don't get stuck in the why spiral. Why can be very, very overwhelming. If we keep going, well, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why also brings up our defensive mechanisms, so we have to be a little bit careful about it. But I watched a TED Talk, and for people that know me, know that I love TED Talks, and I'm a TED Talk junkie. So if you have any good ones, feel free to send them my way. But one of the things that I love about TED Talk there was one about self-awareness. She talked about the self-aware unicorns. And she said there's about 5 to 10% or so of them in the world that they did for their research. And the one question that was very consistent that self-aware people asked was, what? What can I do? What did I do that led up to that? Or what did I do? What can I do through that? And so that really can help. The why is great. Like, why did I respond that way? Oh, because I'm tired. Okay, that's great. So what can I do to mitigate that? I can mitigate that by making sure I get enough sleep. I can make sure that I actually ate lunch today. I can, make sure that I tell the student, hey, pause. I need some time to go think about that before, especially when they're coming at you, asking you a ton of questions. So not only the why is important, but also the what. Because why can put you on defensive, and it doesn't really give you a whole lot of actions. What gives you actions and gives you things that you want to be able to do, things you have control over. And, we like control over ourselves as much as possible. Make sure that something isn't a trigger. Like, was that a trigger action? I know, like, when I have students that are, have waited all semester to hand in an assignment, and then they hand it in, and then they email me like 10 minutes later and like, well, have you graded it yet? And I'm like, dude, I've been at clinical all day. Like, I've been with you at clinical. No, I haven't graded it. I'll get to it, But like immediately my cackles go up, right? So I have to recognize my trigger. And I'm not going to say, why is that my trigger? Well, because to me it feels like they're not respecting my time. But what can I do about it? I can let people know I get at least 24 hours to respond to emails, or I get 24 hours to grade assignments that have been handed in late, especially if they're late. So something to think about as you're working through. Again, visit your values. And the biggest thing, don't get stuck in that why spiral, because it can be very easy to get stuck in the why. I mean, 2-year-olds get stuck in it. So it's very easy for us to get stuck in it too, especially when it's dealing with messy emotions. So then once you kind of get there, say what? What can I do? What do I need to do to be self-aware for myself so I don't put myself in that situation again? And this is kind of our last little activity. There's going to be a TED Talk, because again, I'm a TED Talk junkie, that Mr. Ekstrom did and who actually is from Lincoln, Nebraska, and worked with a university professor on the growth rings. And what he talks about is complexity and where we learn and grow. And I think it's really something that works with self-awareness of being self-aware of when do you learn, when do you stretch your brain, when do you grow. And he goes through and talks about the 4 rings that he has, which are like stagnation, order, complexity, and chaos. And chaos, obviously, not a good learning spot. Stagnation, not a good learning spot. Order is comfort, and complexity is where we are uncomfortable, but we can still learn and grow. And it's actually, we learn and grow the best in complexity when we're challenged, all right? And so what I've done is I created 3 rings. And so what I want you to do is after you watch the video, I want you to think about, when did complexity hit you? Again, this isn't graded, this isn't handed in. This is a good time for you to be self-aware so you can be vulnerable in this space. I do this activity with students because nursing school is hard. It should be hard. It's expected to be hard. It's a ton of growth in a short period of time. So, but what I want to give them is to be self-aware of when they get complexity, when complexity hits, how do we work with it? And so think of a time when you had complexity hit. When was a time where your world was just totally rocked? And what were the feelings in it? So that's back to that journaling idea of think about the feelings. If you list them out, if you're a lister, if you're a storyteller, put them in paragraph form. Remember, no one's judging this. This is just a free, open time to really explore yourself. And then what did you need during that time? What did you need someone to say? What did you need someone to do? What did you need yourself to do? And as you're working through this, it's a great activity for students. I do, when complexity has hit them before, what the feelings were, and then what did they need? What did they need? And so then when applying it forward, what do they need from their teacher? What do they need from their faculty? What do they need from their staff to help them be more successful? I hope you guys enjoy becoming self-aware. It is a huge challenge, and it's an ongoing process of digging into yourself. But remember, it's fun. It's fun to explore who you are. Thanks. Have a great day.